Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to a Thursday night shir. We are going through the parsha of the week, learning some of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh and his explanation on the Torah. And this week, we actually, because Hanukkah is Sunday night, so we actually have a beautiful piece of of Orach Chaim that is going to be talking to us a little bit about Hanukkah. But before we get to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, we first have to see a little bit of an introduction from a sefer author. The name of this sefer is called the Bas Ayin. I'm not clear who the author is. I tried to look it up. I could not find it. But nonetheless, this is what the Bas Ayin says about our parsha and what it connects to Hanukkah. This week, this parsha of Vayeshev is always the week either of Parshas of before Shabbos Hanukkah or the week of Hanukkah. It's always around this time. So there's a lot of information that we find in this week's parsha and in next week's parsha. So we'll see a little bit how this relates to us and what it relates to Hanukkah, and then we'll get to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh at the end to see one last extra piece to kind of bring the entire understanding full circle. So as usual, I'll first share my screen. That way we can all see the information inside. Here we go. Okay. So the psukim that we're going to be talking about, we know that the Vayeshev begins with Yaakov living in Eretz Yisrael, and he's with his 12 sons. The youngest, the second to youngest being Yosef, and Yosef finds himself at odds with the majority of his brothers. And we know it starts off with the two dreams that Yosef has. His brothers only become more upset with him. And then Yosef has to go. Yosef's brothers are out shepherding their sheep, the family's sheep. And Yaakov says to Yosef, my son, please go check in on your brothers, see how they're doing. Tell me what's going on with them. So Yosef, even though he knew that this was not going to be a good thing, it might be dangerous because his brothers were very unhappy with him. Nonetheless, he did not hesitate, and he immediately went to go check on his brothers. Sure enough, his brothers throw him into the pit, and they sell him off, and Yosef ends up all the way into Egypt. After which, the Torah jumps to a story of Yehuda. Yehuda now seeks out a wife, and he gets married, and he has a child, Er, and a child, Onan. Okay, and he has a third son, Shelah. So he has three boys, and to his first son, Er, he marries him off to a woman named Tamar. Er dies without any children, so he marries him to Tamar then goes ahead and marries Onan. Onan dies without any children, and Yehuda sees that his daughter-in-law is not good for the family, and therefore he doesn't want his youngest son Shelah to die. So he says, "Don't worry, don't you're not going to marry Shelah just yet. We'll take care of it in the future." Now it seems that Yehuda forgets about this, and Tamar realizes that her father-in-law forgot about her essentially, and therefore she sets up. She changes her dress, and she sits at the crossroads. And Yehuda confuses her for a woman of ill repute, and he goes ahead and he sleeps with her, and she becomes pregnant. And that's where we're going to start. And the Torah says, "Vayihi kim shalosh chadashim." It was at the end of 3 months, or about 3 months later. As 3 months is the time where, after the first trimester of a woman's pregnancy, it starts to become recognizable that she is pregnant. Vayu gadli Yehuda lemar, and they told Yehuda saying, "Zanta Tamar kalasecha." Your daughter-in-law Tamar has been married another man. The gam hine haralazunam, she became pregnant. Yehuda says, take her out, she should be burned. Himut says she's being taken out. And she sends a message to her father-in-law, Lamar, saying, the man who these things belong to her, belong to him, Anochi hara, I am pregnant. And she says, Vatomer, and she says to him, do you recognize this the seal, the signet, Vapsilim, and these cords, Vahamat, and the staff, that these items. And what had happened was that Yehuda promised to pay her, and she took these items from him as a collateral, and she left and disappeared. Yehuda was never able to pay, but she held on to these items. And then Vayakir Yehuda recognized these items, and he realizes who she was and what had happened. Vayomer Tzad Komi Meni says she's right. She outsmarted me. She did this because if I wasn't going to marry her, well, she's been given to Shayla. I should have given her to Shayla, my son. And he was not with her again. So that's the story. We're very familiar with the story. We know that Tamar, sleeping with Yehuda, with her father-in-law, resulted in twins, and the two twins were Peretz and Zerach, and from there came David HaMelech all the way down. Okay, so that is the general story. So now says the Sefer Bas Ayin, and he says, I want to share with you a very interesting idea. In the time of Hanukkah, if you think about the time of year that Hanukkah is, it's just getting cold, it gets dark very early, and it's a time where if we were to think about, let's see what happened some time ago on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we were inspired and we were thrilled and we were motivated and we really wanted to try and do better and to work harder and to improve. Now, sometimes what happens is that feeling wanes and it goes away all the way as we get to the Hanukkah time of year where it's dark and cold and we're like, all those feelings that I had, they're gone. Where are they? Look at the things that I've done instead of fulfilling the desires that I had when Rosh Hashanah was here. And sometimes a person can feel lost. So, it's like, here we go, just another year where I didn't fulfill what I really wanted to accomplish. So says the Sefer Bas Ayin, the following information is coming to let us know that we should not lose hope. And he says, he quotes the Arizal, and the Arizal says that the final time for Hashem to give a final sign, seal on the books of life is during Hanukkah. I don't know, I can't understand exactly how that works. That's not up to me, but if the Arizal said it, I can just quote him. And the Arizal said the final judgment, so to speak, the final time where the books are absolutely sealed and there's no way to open them up again is Hanukkah. That means up until through Hanukkah, we have this last opportunity to just get it in. And he says the Sefer Bas Ayin, I'll show it to you from these psukim. He says, take a look at these words. Vayehi kim shalosh chadoshim. We know it's been about 3 months. Rosh Hashanah was in Tishrei, the beginning of Tishrei. In Tishrei, Cheshvan, and we're towards the end of Kislev. It's been about 3 months. Vayugad Yehuda, and it was told to Yehuda. Yehuda here is a reference to Hashem. The name Yehuda can oftentimes be an allusion to Hashem. If you'll notice, if you take away the name Yehuda, just skip the Lamed is just a prefix, but the Dalet in the name, if you remove the Dalet, you have Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. You have Hashem's holy name in there. So Yehuda can really mean Hashem. Now, who's talking to Hashem right now? Says the Sefer Bas Ayin, it's the Satan, it's the Yetzer Hara, it's the Malach Hamav, it's the evil inclination. He's going to Hashem and saying, look, it's been about 3 months, and you know what your Jewish people have done? Zansa Tamar Kalasecha. Your Kala, your daughter-in-law. So Kala, we know sometimes can also mean bride. Here in this case, it literally means daughter-in-law, but oftentimes it means the bride. Who's the bride of Hashem? It's us, the Jewish nation. How do we know? Because we are called a Tamar. I'm going to jump to a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. If you take a look, Zos Kol Masech is a reference to the Jewish people and saying, this is your stature, this is your posture. Dam sola summer. You know what your posture is like, your stature is like? You're like a tamar, you're like a palm tree, a date palm. It stands erect and tall, very, very stately. And that is who we are. We are very stately people. And says, so we see that we're compared to a tamar, to a date palm. So in this pasuk, when it says, Zansa Tamar Kalasecha, your bride, Tamar, has been unfaithful to you, Hashem. The Gam Hine Haral Iznunim is filled with all sorts of things. All the promises they made on Rosh Hashanah, says the Yetzer Hara, says the evil inclination to Hashem. It's all God. They have filled themselves with desires from this world. Vayomer Yehuda, and Hashem listens, and as we said before, Yehuda is a reference to Hashem. I see what you're saying, and therefore Hotzi Uhaviti Sarit. You're right. The Jewish people need to be punished. And what happens? He mutses. So we're being taken out. The Hishocha El Chamiha. And Hashem, and we send a message to Hashem. We send a message, Lamar saying, La'ish Asher Elalo. We're sending a message, La'ish, to the person, Asher Elalo, to the one that all of this is his. What's all of this? The letters Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Lamed, Vav, Elalo in Gematria equals 72, I believe. It's the same Gematria as the word Chesed. So who is the one that has all kindness? It's Hashem. Hashem is the master. He's the owner, so to speak. He's the master of all kindness, of all chesed. And we sent the message to Hashem, Hashem, you who are filled with kindness. Listen, Anochi Hara, it's true. I have been filled with things that are not great. But take a look, Vatomer, please listen. I want to show you something. Hakir no, pay attention. Look, Lemi Hachosemes. Who is this seal? This seal is a reference. We know that in the story of Hanukkah, what happened was the Greeks. The Torah tells us that the Greek general told his soldiers, I have a very important mission for you when you invade and enter into the Beis Hamikdash, into the holy temple of the Jewish people. Your mission is to make sure that you extinguish the light of the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. That's your job, said the general to his soldiers. And once you extinguish that, I have another job. Your second job is to find any oil. I know the laws of the Jewish people, and they may not use impure oil to light the menorah. So it's your job. You must go find any oil and make sure that you just crack them open and make them impure. You have to touch and go through every single oil. Don't let a single drop of oil that is pure be found. And that's what they did. The Greeks went through the entire Beis Hamikdash, and they had driven by a mission to make sure that we would never be able to light that menorah again. However, we know the tremendous miracle that occurred was that when the Chashmonaim came in, they found the Pach Shemen Echad. They found one small jug of oil that had Shahaisa Chasuma. It had the Chasima of the Kohen Gadol. It had the signet. It had the seal of the Kohen Gadol. This word Chosemes over here is a reference to the jug of oil that the Jewish people had in the times of the Chashmonaim that was sealed with that Chosam, with that signet of the Kohen Gadol, showing that it was still pure. So that is the Chosemes, says Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people. We are telling Hashem, Vatomer, we're telling Hashem, listen, look at the flask of oil that we use to light our Hanukkah candles. The Hapesilim, look at the wicks that we use to light our Hanukkah candles. The Hamata and the staff. There's the Bas Ayin says that the word Hamata equals the gematria of 60. And 60 is the same gematria of the word Kli, as the vessel that we use to light our menorah. There's another allusion. He does not say this, but that we are familiar that Yaakov Avinu, when he went across, we know that he crossed the river, and all he had was a staff in his hand, and in that staff he had oil, and that oil was used to light his way while he stayed in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever for 14 years studying. He used the oil to light his nights, that he should be able to study through the nights because he didn't sleep. And the Medrash says that because of that staff that Yaakov Avinu had when he studied in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever, that staff and that was filled with oil is why we merited a miracle with oil in the times of Hanukkah. So the Mata, look, Hashem, we're telling Hashem, the Jewish nation is, so to speak, telling Hashem, look at the oil that we use, look at the wicks, look at the vessel, the kli, the menorah that we use, look at all the things that we have for Hanukkah. And realize that when we light when we light our candles on Hanukkah, Hashem, that's showing that we are dedicated to only you. It's true, we may have done things until now, but we are only truly dedicated to you. And Vayakir Yehuda, and Hashem recognizes what happens, and he realizes what we are telling him, and he realizes that the Yetzer Hara was just trying to get him, or trying to get us better. Vayomer, and Hashem says, Tzad kami meni. You see that the Jewish people, they're righteous. They're righteous. It's true. They're doing the right thing. And I'll tell you why, says Hashem. I understand why they were not so perfect until now. Ki al kain lo nisatiha l'Shela b'ni, because I did not give them to Shela, my son. Shela is the name of Yehuda's son. It's true, but the name Shela can also be read with the word Ad ki yavo Shilo. It's in Pasuk Memtes. It's in the Pasuk later on. Here, Lo Yasser Shevet mi Yehuda, that there will the staff, which means that the kingship will always stay with the tribe of Yehuda. Umechokek mi ben Raglov, and the ruler's staff will never leave his feet. Ad ki yavo Shilo. It's the same letters, same little word as Shelah. Shelah means Shiloh, until Shiloh comes. What is Shiloh? Shiloh is a reference to Mashiach. That since they are here, Ad ki lo nisati l'Shela b'ni, I haven't given the Jewish people Mashiach. And because they're still stuck in this lengthy gullus, this lengthy exile, I understand that that's why they're less than perfect. And therefore, I realize that they're still truly dedicated to me, even in this lengthy exile. And the things that they have done is not a reason to go ahead and punish them. Rather, we should hopefully get Mashiach in a faster fashion. So says the Bas Ayin, the Sefer Bas Ayin, what the Arizal is telling us, and based on these psukim, is that after 3 months, a person can feel down on their luck, so to speak. We're losing out. All that inspiration that we had on Rosh Hashanah, it seemed to have disappeared. But now when we come to light the Hanukkah candles, that's our ticket, so to speak, to bring us closer to Mashiach. That's our ticket to show Hashem, look, we're truly dedicated to you. The menorah represents the Torah, represents our relationship with Hashem. The light of the world is Hashem and His Torah. And therefore, we show Hashem that we're connected. And the only reason why we may not have been as good as we can is simply because we have been in this extended Gullus. It's truly a beautiful Bas Ayin, but officially this is a shir on the Orach Chaim on the Parsha. So I have to share you something with the Orach Chaim, of course. Now take a look, unbelievable, what the Orach Chaim says on this very same pasuk. Okay, Vayakir Yehuda, back to the actual story of what the Torah is trying to tell us, not just the remez of the Bas Ayin, that that Yehuda recognized that the woman that his daughter-in-law was pregnant because of him, and therefore he said to her, or he said she is more righteous than I am, or she's correct, and therefore they did not punish her. So says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh right here on the side. Vim Tomar, maybe you'll tell me, Sof Kol Sof. B'shas Maisa, Shebechezkas Goya Ba'alel, at the time that he slept with his daughter-in-law, he didn't know that it was his daughter-in-law, and therefore he was doing something that he was not allowed to do. So Lama Aval Gzeras Bezdin, there was a decree that a person should not do things like that. So how can he go ahead and do something something like this, leave with his own daughter-in-law, and so even he didn't know, but at the end of the day, it seems to have been something that's not so good. So what is going on? How do we understand this? Ask the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. And he says, Lezek kvar tirtzu Rabbeinu Zechronu Mevarach. We already have an answer to this. Ki me Hashem mitzadei gavar. Hashem sets up the steps of mankind. V'tikein alilos, and he arranges different types of subterfuge. Lahotzi la'or ta'alumos, to bring to light that which he'd like to accomplish, that which Hashem wants to accomplish. V'tzeu lamad mashi pirashnu b'parshas Vayechi b'pasuk gur aryeh. And take a look what I taught over there in Parshas Vayechi, which was just where we were. So let's go jump to Parshas Vayechi. And in this pasuk of Gur Aryeh Yehuda, right before the pasuk of Shiloh of Mashiach, it says Gur Aryeh Yehuda. That Yehuda is like a lion. Miteref b'ni Elisa, that he has risen up over the prey of his son. Kara Ravatz Kari, he crouches and lies like a lion. Uchlovi Miya Kimeno, and he's like a lioness who would dare try and start up with him or arouse the lioness. Okay, so we're not going to go through this. This is what's called the Birchas Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu, he's on his deathbed, and he's giving blessings to all of his sons. And I'm not going to go through all the questions that the Orach Chaim is coming from, because there's lengthy pages and pages of understanding each part of every one of these psukim. So I just want to pull out the pieces that the Orach Chaim is referencing. And he says as follows. That we can explain all the psukim based on one introduction. Zaka, it's clear, ubara, and it's powerful. Asher hi'ira einenu b'dvar nechmadim me'or tarasehim, which can enlighten our eyes into beautiful things of the Torah. The who, and that is he Adam Harishon, the first man, who Elon, he's like a tree. Shebo hayutzluyim kol haneshamos shel hakadusha. All of the neshamos were part of, all souls were originally part of Adam Harishon. Sheyatzu la'olam yom hayos olam ba'asher asidin latzes. All for the entirety of the existence of the world, from the day one of creation, or day 6 really, when Adam was created, all the way till the end of time, whenever that may be, all the neshamos that will ever be on this planet were all originally part of Adam Harishon. However, Adam, once Adam sinned, shalat chela kara, there was this evil part that now was part of him. The yashav menu shevi le'ein mispar, and because this evil part was now attached to him, this stain, so to speak, was now on him. What happened was that his neshama kind of broke off, and there were many different, as he calls it, shvi is like a captives. Darshu me'al sefer anshe emes ma'atzmo hashvui me'akdusha b'klipa v'hein im Hashem mishtadle miyom heyosim levar lahotzi bolamipiv. And what Hashem tries to do, what Hashem organizes for us is that our neshamas, they should be set up in a position that all the negativity that was built up from when Adam Rishon was there should be cleared off and removed. And therefore, and the way we remove all of that negative things that Adam Rishon placed on us, and therefore we are, so to speak, captives to that evil, to the evil inclination in that way, Hashem gave us something that is the source of all spirituality, which is implanted inside of us in order to remove that. What is that thing that is implanted inside of us? HaTorah v'ha-mitzvos. That is the Torah and the mitzvos. And therefore, those things can help us attach to Hashem and clarify our neshama. Okay, and we're going to jump down now. And he says like this. He says, Olam ulefamim, and sometimes, one second, I have to find it exactly on this, on the computer. Oh, here we go. And based on this, we can understand. Taskil et atzas Hashem, we can understand the wisdom of Hashem. Asher yo'atz al Yehuda. Hashem gave the advice to Yehuda, v'shalach malach, and he sent a malach, v'hechrichai, and forced Yehuda. There was a malach that came down and forced Yehuda and pushed him lavo el hakadesha to sleep with the harlot that was at the crossroads. This is a reference to us, the events that occur in our parsha. Ki be'emtzos hayos hadavar bilti haga and alpi Torah. Since it would have been inappropriate based on the Torah, lishkav es kalaso, for Yehuda to marry his daughter-in-law, ube'emtzos hayos Yehuda anos alpi hadibur, and Yehuda is now also forced by Hashem. Ne'elam dvar iser mimenu, this thing that would have been prohibited was hidden from him. V'lo yada ki kalaso, he didn't even know it was his daughter-in-law. Ubezeh hotzi mimakar hatoma, and through that source of impurity, what came out of there was anaf mufla shebekdusha, this unbelievable branch of spirituality. Peretz v'Zarach, the two children that Tamar had, was Peretz and Zarach. Sheyushvuyim, those two children were almost, so to speak, they were captives to the evil inclination, to the evil spirit, all the way since Adam Rishon. And because they were so great, they were locked in, and therefore Hashem had to force Yehuda's hand, so to speak, and put him in that situation. That way, these great people, Peretz and Zerach, could come out, which would then bring us, as we said earlier, would bring us to David HaMelech. We know that Peretz is the great grandfather of David HaMelech. David HaMelech is where Mashiach is going to come from. Without Peretz, we wouldn't have that. We'd never have David. Without David, we would never have the true Malucha. Without the true Malucha, we would never have Mashiach. And therefore, all of these things that occurred in our parsha, although this event with Yehuda sleeping with his daughter-in-law, it seems crazy. Like, how can this be? It seems like such a negative thing. But Hashem put all of this into action because we had to pull out the purity that was locked away from the time of Adam Harishon and bring that out to light. Now, put this together with what we saw from the Bas Ayin. The Bas Ayin is telling us that these psukim are a source for us to realize that a person, even though we left Rosh Hashanah about 3 months ago, and we may feel like we're not so connected anymore, or we don't have the same excitement or the same enthusiasm or the same dedication that we had on Rosh Hashanah, that we said, we're going to do this and we're going to do this right this time. And we might feel like we need to give up. We're lighting the Hanukkah menorah, we're lighting the lights of our candles to show that Hashem, we are dedicated only to you. From all that impurity of the Greeks that came through to make all of that oil impure, we have this tremendous miracle of purity. And from the same way that we got out of that impurity, we got a miracle of true purity, the same way out of the impurity, so to speak, of the actions of Yehuda and Tamar that would have otherwise been something impure, came Peretz and Zerach, which is the source of Mashiach Tzidkenu. That's just a beautiful idea that we can take from the Orach Chaim HaKadosh to inspire ourselves as Hanukkah approaches Sunday night. Every night, if I can encourage that on Sunday night and on Monday and Tuesday, every night, if possible, as soon as you light those Hanukkah candles, for the next half an hour, disconnect from everything and only connect to your family, connect to the Torah, study something, learn something, talk about something relevant to Hanukkah, relevant to the Torah, relevant to your family, and connect with the people around you in a spiritual and meaningful way. And that way we can truly bring the light of the menorah into ourselves. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. I'm not sure if this is exactly a question, but it's I hadn't been aware that I mean, I guess it makes sense. Ben Partsy is, apart from the Hadudi, is the Mashiach coming from ultimately from Peretz, and just thinking it's almost a radical idea. You think both the Peretz's somewhat might superficially seem like a checkered origin, and when you think also of, of Ruth, being obviously, the Mashiach being descended from her, it seems almost like a when you think of other, I would assume other from that time, the idea of the some redeemer coming from humble origins on both sides is it seems like a very um, radical thing, and for that time, and maybe for any time.
Yeah, it's powerful. It shows that on the one hand, we on the one hand, we have to realize that just because those are the origins doesn't mean that that's a judgment of the person that's standing in front of us. It's not doesn't speak necessarily to who the individual in front of us is. Rather, in spite of whatever person's origins are, they can always rise up to even greater things. And here we see that really it was part of the plan, so to speak, because we had to get out all of that those spiritual things that were locked away or taken captive, so to speak, in order to really access everything that the Jewish nation needs as a whole. A great way to remember, by the way, the lineage is, well, just remember where you can look it up. I'll share the screen. If you look in Rus, at the end of Megillas Rus, we always say the whole family chain. The Eila Todos Paretz. These are the children of Paretz. Paretz Holides Chetzron. Paretz gave birth to Chetzron. Chetzron gave birth to Ram. Ram gave birth to Aminadav. Aminadav gave birth to Nachshon. Nachshon gave birth to Salma. Salmon gave birth to Boaz, and Boaz gave birth to Oved. Oved gave birth to Yishai. Yishai gave birth to David. That's the whole chain. This is Nachshon ben Aminadav, the same guy that jumped into the water in the Yam Suf, right? There's a lot of great names in the family tree over here. But at the very end of the Megillas Rus, you have the whole list. If you want to just keep in the back of your head, where you can look up the whole family tree.
So, Rabbi, from the Maisa of Simon Labanan point of view, I mean, we don't really understand. We're obviously not supposed to behave like that. Generally, we're supposed to do things like Chesed, like Abraham, and we're supposed to do Gura, like Yitzhak, and Tiferes, like Yaakov. And here, what are we supposed to do like Yehuda? I mean, Yehuda is the Jews. We're all from Yehuda, basically, except for the Levium and a couple of from Benjamin. But basically, where do we stand?
So as far it's definitely true. As far as this kind of thing, at least what we see is that the Orach Chaim HaKadosh told us that Yehuda was forced, so to speak, into this situation. This wasn't something he would have done. Hashem sent a malach to push him to go, sleep with his daughter-in-law. That wasn't something that he would have done, even not knowing that who the woman was. He would have just stayed away. But Hashem sent a malach for this to happen in order for the results to come out. Our takeaway of Yehuda, in my opinion, is always the strength of Yehuda, that no matter what happened, he was always there, ready. Once he realized what selling Yosef was, which is really in a couple of weeks, we'll see this. But once he realized what happened, what he really did wrong by selling Yosef, he was able to, number one, admit his wrongdoing. In this week's parsha, we see that when confronted with Tamar's let's call them accusations. He said, no, Tzadka Mimeni. He was very outright and open about it. She's right. I made a mistake. This was me. And didn't, try and just save face and ignore it and brush it under the rug. So there are things that we have from Yehuda. This particular example, obviously, is not, that's not for us to emulate. Okay, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a Freilich and Hanukkah, and we'll see you next week, Mitzvah Shem.
To you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yashikor.
You take care.
Thanks very much, Rabbi. Sure.